You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host Keith Angle on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good evening, everybody. Keith Angle here for TGI Sports Talk's College Sports Huddle. Glad to have you all with me here tonight as we look around the world of college sports. Some big breaking news tonight. We'll talk about Jim Boeheim out after 47 years as head coach, 60 years total with Syracuse basketball. We'll get into that story in just a bit. Sorry we haven't had any shows since this show last Wednesday. I am still struggling with the respiratory virus that I've had, for 10 days now. This is a mean mother, let me tell you. Anyway, we're getting a little better. We're fighting it. Hope to bring in all the shows as scheduled this week, and if not, I'll certainly update you. But we're going to fight through it tonight, as we did last week, and get through all this. We're live on Northeast Streaming Sports. We're simulcasting on Let's Talk Sports. We're certainly on the TGI Sports Talk page, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all those outlets. We welcome everybody who's watching us from all those. We welcome you to partake tonight, comment, bring up your topics, comment on the topics that we're talking about. And we'll get into, as I said, the removal of, or however you want to phrase this, it came down a little strange, the whole Jim Boeheim thing. We'll talk about that. Some news about Chris Beard being potentially back in play for college basketball coaching in a major school, Ole Miss, already after the mess at Texas. And we'll get into the conference tournaments and certainly some bracketology tonight. We'll tackle a little bit of college football news, maybe even a little college baseball. We'll see what time allows. And again, I apologize for the raspy voice and the cough button here and there, but 10 days later, we're still battling away here. Good evening, Carlos. Well, maybe Jim Boeheim wants to go to Austin Peay. I don't know about you guys, but and we'll get into Jim Boeheim's legacy here a little bit. We're going to talk about this for as long as we want to. Listen, Jim Boeheim was a very polarizing figure at Syracuse. There are some that love him. There's some that hate him. I think he's had a remarkable career, a type of career that you're not going to see anymore in college sports. You don't see basketball coaches stay 47 years at a school. 60 years association is done. And again, I'm not saying he shouldn't. It's time for Jim to go. But he's 78 years old, still vibrant, but he hasn't recruited as well as he has in the past, missing 3 of the last 4 NCAA championships. Did have a run to the Final 16 back in 2016, I want to say. Tweet 16. With a down team. He hasn't had a really good team in quite some time. The way the whole thing went down was a little strange, though. I mean, he says he made his retirement speech, if you were listening close enough, last Saturday. But after the game today, he kept saying, it's up to university. It's up to the university. Didn't sound exactly like a guy who, is leaving of his own accord. But I don't think you can really diminish the accomplishments that Jim Boeheim has done in his career. I mean, the man has 1,015 wins. He would be the all-time win leader. He's second behind Mike Krzyzewski, who's just over 1,200. If there weren't 100-plus games that were wins that were vacated between 2015 and, let me see here, 2015 and this happened in 2015. There was 101 total wins that were vacated between 2004 and 2012. Again, a very polarizing figure around college basketball circles. Jim Boeheim with a remarkable career. 5 Final Fours, 35 NCAA tournament appearances in 47 seasons, 10 Big East championships. Some great players coming out of Syracuse. Carmelo Anthony, Raphael Addison. I won't even be able to name them all. Pearl Washington, Ronnie Cycli, Derek Coleman, Red Bruin, who we've had on the show. Sonny Spiro, who does a great show called Big East Rewind. Not a big star, but speaks highly, if you follow him on Facebook, of Coach Boeheim as a person and as somebody who influences young men. Sending Tibbs' resume. They've already got a coach. Adrian Autry's a new coach. Adrian Autry's been there a few years now. He's been the associate head coach the last couple of years. He played at Syracuse from 90 to 94. He's been an assistant. He coached in high school. Then he was an assistant coach at Virginia Tech. Then he came to Syracuse in 2011. His alma mater. Has been coaching there as an assistant and as the associate head coach since 2016, about the time Mike Hopkins left for Washington, who was, again, the heir apparent at that time, but he got tired of waiting for Coach Boeheim to step away. He's not going to coach again. I mean, Jim Boeheim was Syracuse basketball. He's been at that program since 1963. He played guard with Dave Bing. If those of you are old enough to remember Dave Bing, great guard out of Syracuse, great NBA player at Detroit, later with the Washington Bullets, which we can't say anymore because Bullets is an offensive term. Don't get me going there. And also, I think with the Celtics for a little time. So he played there for 4 years. Then he coached. He was an assistant coach until, what year did he take over? 70? I want to say 72, but let me just check here. I guess I'm not going to find it. Assistant, 69 to 67. 76, and then 76, he takes over as the head coach. 60-year association with Syracuse. He's not going somewhere else. Whether he left of his own accord or did not, the fact remains he's 79 years old. He's had a lifelong association with Syracuse University. He's not going somewhere else. Louis Orr is another name that comes into mind. I mean, there's so many. Roosevelt Bowie. I could go on naming players for just an hour and a half. After Coach Luce, it's been tough at APSU. Well, it's been tough there since Dick Vitale almost had to stand on his head. If you remember the first year ESPN had the college basketball tournament. Carlos, you're probably too young to remember this. It's around 1980. Austin Peay was playing, I want to say Duke. I'm not sure. Probably not Duke in 80. They might have been playing Kentucky. And Dick Vitale in his first year as a commentator in the studio said if Austin Peay were to beat them, he'd stand on his head. And at halftime, they were beating him. And they were showing him practicing staying on his head. Anyway, I get a little, Tibbs isn't going anywhere either. So that's a different story, which we can debate on Friday, Carlos. Thibodeau's doing a great job with the Knicks. We're not getting into it tonight. This is a college sports huddle. Again, Jim Boeheim, love him or hate him, and we can go back here if we get some people join us later and want to talk about it. 47 remarkable years, 35 NCAA tournaments, 5 Final Fours. There are coaches all over this country who would kill to get to 1 Final Four. And he also went to, I want to say, I know he went to at least 2 finals. I think he went to 3 finals. And with a couple of teams that weren't the best. This is a good basketball coach. People don't get him credit. Syracuse University, guys, if you don't know, is buried in Western New York, Central New York, I should say. Upstate, Central New York. To be able to recruit kids to play basketball there
Now, the Big East helped them. The formation of the Big East in 1980 certainly helped Coach Boeheim in Syracuse, as well as the rest of the Big East. UConn, Georgetown, St. John's, all of them. But you got to be able to recruit, and you got to be able to coach. And he could do both. So, listen, say what you want. But Coach Boeheim, again, this is a type of career you're not going to see ever again. In sports, these types of careers are over because of the money, because of the pressure, because of whatever. Guys aren't going to coach 47 years. Mike Bray's out after 23 years at Notre Dame. Right? Of his own accord. People don't stay. Jay Wright, great career, 20 plus years at Villanova. And to do 47 years with one school, guys aren't going to coach 47 years, period, because of the money they make. But in any event, let's take a quick look. We'll switch gears here a little bit. Oh, what do you got here, Rick? I'm a Hardy fan to walk up to the top of the hill at the arena in the winter. Yeah. It could be cold up there. You know what? You have to pack that building. Syracuse's downfall started with moving to the ACC, not Jim Boeheim's fault. He went kicking and screaming. To pack that arena in Syracuse, New York, game after game after game, you need to play a good brand of basketball, and you need to have stars. And Jim Boeheim was able to do both. He recruited players, mostly guys who didn't get in trouble. I mean, Pearl Washington was had his issues, obviously died very young, sadly. Derek Coleman had his issues after leaving Syracuse. But for the most part, people came out of there solid citizens. If you follow what Tony Red Bruin is doing these days, if you follow some of the things that Raphael Addison and guys like that do for communities, even Rondé Hawkins, who had some issues in school and after school, has turned his life around. And all of these guys go back to Syracuse for Coach Boeheim. They will speak roses about him. He's, again, been a very polarizing figure throughout the years, but you can't fault the man's success. And again, you're not going to see this type of career again. So we'll move on. If anybody wants to come back to Jim Boeheim at any point in the show, we will do just that. Let's take a quick look, if we can, quickly. Take a quick look quickly. Can I be a little more redundant than that? You guys got to forgive me and we're still battling this upper respiratory thing. My ear's still plugged up. I've had days where I feel really good, and then I'm back where I started. I got to get to the doctor again tomorrow. Rick, I'm not sure you're going to see me in person Saturday. I'm going to have to call Drew, see what's going on. I don't know that it's going to be a good idea for me to be sitting around a table with a bunch of guys unless something miraculous happens in the next couple of days, but we'll see how that goes. In any event, let's take a quick look here, if we can, at let's just look at the coaches poll real quick. Then we're going to jump around. We're going to look at some of the college. We'll see who's in the tournament so far, including one team we'll talk about as we go through the rankings here. And then we'll go around some of the conference tournaments and maybe make some predictions, see who might steal a bid. Houston, great game. If you didn't watch a Memphis-Houston game, you missed a great game on, I think it was Saturday. It might have been Sunday. I was asleep a lot of the weekend. I did see most of this game. The end was really a good finish. Memphis and Penny Hardaway's Memphis team played a really good basketball game. But Houston showed their mettle. Those are the type of games on the road that good teams win. And they did a good job of winning this game, stretching their lead now at first place in the poll. From 58 first place votes, UCLA moves up to number 2. They get the remaining 3 votes. UCLA and Houston, most likely, I think, are locked in with 1 seeds. Kansas probably locked in, regardless of what they do in the tournament, I would say. Then you're going to have a battle for the 4th number 1 seed with Alabama, Purdue, Marquette, Texas, Arizona. These are the teams that are in the top 10. Gonzaga at 9. Gonzaga have been trying to bury. I am a lot of other people. Timmy, their seniors played great, set a record, which we'll talk about in a little bit. A Gonzaga record the other night. But they played well. They played very resilient. I've said they aren't as talented, they aren't as good, and they aren't. But I thought St. Mary's, I said it here, St. Mary's would beat them in the regular season final. They did not. And then they get blown out in the conference final the other night by Gonzaga by 19 or 20 points. And Gonzaga's 9th, probably looking a very good chance Gonzaga's going to slide into a 2 if one of these teams in front of them falters. I've been trying to bury Gonzaga forever. I'll get to your comments in just a second. We'll go through the rest of the top 25 quickly. UConn all the way back up to number 11 now. UConn looking at a top 4 seed, maybe even a top 12 seed as we head towards Selection Sunday on Sunday. If I feel better, by the way, I think last year I did a Selection Sunday show, and I will consider doing it again Sunday night, depending on how I feel. Kansas State drops 1 to number 12. Virginia stays at 13. Miami moves up 2 after winning the regular season ACC tournament. Congratulations to regular season championship as they head into the tournament starting today. Xavier up 4 to number 15. St. Mary's falls. They actually move up. This is before their blowout loss to Gonzaga, though. They moved up to number 16. St. Mary's, I predicted a top 3 or 4 seed, and that's probably not going to happen now. They will make the tournament. Tennessee's dropping like a rock. They're all the way down to 17 now after being 2 here just a few weeks ago. A&M moves up 6 to number 16. They're one of the big movers of the week. Indiana down 4 to 19. San Diego State drops 2 to 20. Then you got Duke back in the top 25, up 5 spots. TCU stays flat. Kentucky stays flat at 22 and 23. Creighton 21. Creighton's 24. They move up into the top 25 again. Missouri moves back into the top 25 at 25. You'll notice again, Noah Oral Roberts, who only won their conference tournament here the other night. It's all over. They're in. One of the teams that are already in the tournament. They finished 12 votes short of the top 25. I got to drop somebody out if I'm putting them in, right? I mean, TCU would be a logical choice. Maybe Creighton not jumping back up in the top 25. Maybe Missouri not dropping back up in the top 25. Might be some of the things that we would look at. I'm trying to walk it off, buddy. I'm working on it. But you don't want to be, believe me, you don't want to be sitting next to me in a closed environment right now. I'm not here. I could not do the shows. After doing Wednesday's show, I was spent. I got sicker on Thursday, sicker yet on Friday, slept most of Friday and Saturday and Sunday. So that's why there were no shows. And we're going to try to do all the shows this week. Had interviews scheduled tomorrow with Jim Kern. That will not happen. He also is a little under the weather. So we moved that to sometime next week. So you'll see a new interview, maybe 2 interviews next week come up live. We'll have Jim Kern and Kermit Washington. Anyway, we're going to get into when we get into bracketology. Somebody asked me in the TGI Sports Talk chat this week about Drake and what their record was, and it was Kenny Gifford, I think, who's also been a big proponent of Oral Roberts this year. But Drake, has had a very good year in the Missouri Valley Conference, and they probably won't make the tournament unless they win that tournament. And some of these one-bid leagues I think the committee needs to look harder especially when a team wins a regular season and falters maybe in a championship game of their conference tournament, and they're just out. But we're letting teams with under 500 conference records, like West Virginia, like Oklahoma State, like some others that we'll talk about. I don't want to pick just on them, but the Big 12 is really the one to kind of look at. We'll look at it when we look at bracketology. I don't want to see these teams. Don't tell me their strength of schedule and all they lost to were good teams. Well, they lost to those teams. Record means something. You know, all the sports today, all the things that have mattered forever, we have to just discount because we have to put a gazillion metrics to everything. Sometimes the eye test is just that. Put your computers away and your ultrametrics and watch a game and say, that's a good basketball team. Anyway. Who's in? Let's take a look at the tournament right now. We'll look at the conference tournaments, what's going on here, and who's in already. Who's in already? Kennesaw State is in the ASUN as they beat Liberty in their finals, 67-66, an exciting final. The 1 and 2 seeds, they punch their ticket to the big dance. Asheville, UNC Asheville, kind of this is not unusual for them to make the tournament. I was going to look at the bracket here, and it's not bringing it up for me. I don't know who they beat, so I apologize because maybe I clicked on the tickets instead of the bracket. Hold on. No, I thought I clicked on it doesn't bring it up, so we can't look at that. But anyway, they're in. College of Charleston spent a lot of time in the top 25 this year. They win the CAA. Who they beat? Let's see who they beat. You know, this is ridiculous. Oh, there we go. We get this one anyway. They beat UNCW 63-58 in this final. Hofstra had a great year, by the way, out of Jersey. Tremendous year for them. They went out, though, in the semifinals of this conference tournament. Northern Kentucky wins the Horizon League. I'm not going to pull up that bracket. Fairleigh Dickinson wins the Northeast. Southeast Missouri State wins the Ohio Valley. Fairleigh Dickinson in the Northeast is where Albany State plays, by the way. Terrible year there for the Great Danes, and probably a fired coach would be my guess. Championship game was Southeast Missouri State 89, Tennessee Tech 82 in overtime. So fun tournament there with a fun final. Furman wins the Southern. Oral Roberts out of the Summit, as we said, continues to just make waste of that league. They rolled through the tournament. They won the final 92-58 over North Dakota State. Still can't get any love from the voters. Let's hope they get, more love from the tournament committee when the seedings come out. West Coast Conference, we mentioned earlier, Gonzaga just throttled St. Mary's the other night, Tuesday night, to gain a victory and probably a decent shot at a 2 seed after a lot of so-called pundits like me have tried to bury them for much of the year. Oh boy. Do I sound as bad as I sound in my head? Oh my God. If I do, I apologize. So what's going on elsewhere? The American East. Their playoffs have started. Oh, that's Albany's. That's Albany's league right there. They aren't even playing. The final will be played tomorrow. I'm sorry, on Saturday. It'll be UMass Lowell at number 1 Vermont. Vermont's had a really good season. UMass Lowell wins this. That's probably not going to be a seed stealer, right? Because they're not going to get a bid. Vermont probably in an at-large bid if they do not win here. So this is going to be a one-bid league. What we got here, Rick? Yeah, Coach Killings does have a bit of a temper. He might head up the hill to East Greenbush and, give me a good thrashing. If you don't know the story, he had a little run-in with a player last year, and a month or so ago, he was actually charged with simple assault. Did it reach that level? I don't know. It's hard to tell because you can't yell at kids today. So you can't yell at kids. You can't put a hand on the kid. Do I think he punched the kid in the face? Do I think he choked the kid? Probably not. But, there is a line. If he crossed the line, then he needs to be punished. And if he didn't, playing losing basketball and having that type of thing hanging over your head is not a good combination. He's going to be looking for a new job. Where am I here? The American Athletic Conference. Oh, where are we here? We got the quarterfinals coming up tomorrow. Right now, we've got East Carolina and that's tomorrow. I forgot what day it is. This is going to be Houston's tournament to lose, right? I would say Houston and Memphis are definitely in the tournament. There's a possibility of Tulane maybe sneaking a bid in there. But this will be a place where somebody could steal a bid. If Memphis or Houston wins, then no. But if you see a Cincinnati or a Temple or a Tulane, come in and play really well for the tournament, that could steal a seed from somebody else. And I'm okay if a seed gets stolen away from an Oklahoma State or West Virginia. We'll talk more about that as we go on tonight. The A-10. I know Davidson won over St. Bonaventure here the other night. These things are very hard to read. So already Davidson has beaten St. Bonaventure. George Mason has beaten Richmond. St. Joe's beat George Washington. Duquesne beat LaSalle. Duquesne's playing LaSalle tonight. No major upsets there. This is a place again, you might see, it's possible that VCU gets a at-large if they lose this tournament. Possible. And Dayton and Fordham's had a great year after being a college basketball wasteland for decades. Fordham's had a great year this year. They're the number 3 seed in this tournament. And if they or St. Louis or Dayton were to pull an upset here in this tournament, they could potentially steal a bid. I said a seed stealer. Let's call it a bid stealer away from somebody like the aforementioned Big 12 teams. In the ACC, games started today. As we said, Syracuse gets beat. They're out. And Coach Boeheim's 47-year career at Syracuse, I should say 60-year career at Syracuse, 47 years as the head coach, ends with a loss to Wake Forest, Florida State, and Georgia Tech. Bad teams, man. Georgia Tech gets by Florida State. These are games, those already been played. Wake over Syracuse today. Pittsburgh over Georgia Tech. Big win for Pitt. Pitt's kind of on that bubble watch, and they got to get in. They lost to Miami with a chance to win the regular season title. Probably would have been in, but they fell short last Saturday. Miami wins that regular season tournament, regular season championship. We'll see how they do in the tournament. Carolina with a big game for them against Boston College tonight. Right now, as we speak, North Carolina is likely on the outside of this tournament looking in. If you're looking for somebody who might be on the outside, looking in that could, again, steal a bid from somebody else. I would say, we'll look closer at this again in a second. Miami's in, Duke is in, Virginia's in, North Carolina State's probably in. It would have to take a North Carolina, maybe Pitt. Maybe Pitt's on the outside looking in right now. They could be a bid stealer as well. So we'll see how that goes going forward. We already talked about the ace on the Big 12, wide open tournament. I think there's some big games to be played. No games played yet, obviously. This doesn't help me at all. Thank you for the bracket. Doesn't help me. Where there is no bracket, don't say there is a bracket if there isn't one. Would you please? Let me go to the standings page here. I can find it. Here we go. Big 12. You want to find us somebody who could, listen, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, if you want to make a case, then you best, to me, go to the conference final or shut up and go home. Because I'm not taking these 8 and 10, 7, 11 teams in conference into the tournament. I'm not doing it. So are they bid stealers or bid secures if they were to? They need to win. To me, they need to win the tournament. Kansas should be the favorite here. Kansas will get a 1 seed and will be looking to become only the third team in the last 25 years, maybe 25, probably 30 some years to repeat as champions. What else we got here? What's next? Big East. Gonna give me a bracket? Help Keith out? There we go. St. John's wins today over Butler, so that's a nice win for them. They're not going to get, you know what? This is a team that could get hot. They're not going to win this tournament. Villanova, who's played very well, probably needs to win a tournament to get in. We'll look at some of that going forward. I really think I like to chalk here. I like Marquette because Marquette wins this tournament. Marquette can get themselves a number 1 bid. What do we got here? The PTI guy says North Carolina needs to get to the championship game to get in. Probably. I would say that's probably about right, Rick. They got to win at least 2 games and probably 3 to have a chance. They had a really bad loss last week to Duke, and this team is not playing its best basketball at this time of year like they were last year when they had a great run through the NCAA tournament to the Final Four and a great showdown with Duke in a Final Four game in Coach Krzyzewski's last college basketball game, which they won. Thank you, Dan, for the kudos. I'm struggling through it here tonight, and hopefully, Dan, I don't know, maybe Dan will do Let's Talk Sports with me Friday. I'm not sure. Let's Talk New York Sports Friday. We'll have to talk about that. If not, you'll see me hopefully do that show on Friday. We'll see how we recover from this. What else do we have here? Big East we talked about. Big Sky. I'll give you my favorites here. Why? It's useless. Kind of just frustrates me when they give me a bracket and then it doesn't freaking do anything. Big Sky, this is probably going to be, East. There's not going to be a bid stealer here. Let's just say that. Eastern Washington, Montana State, whoever wins this, Weber State, whoever wins this conference tournament is going to get in 1 bid. That's it. Big South, same thing. We've already talked a little bit about that. I'm sorry, UNC Asheville's already in. The Big Ten, this could be an interesting tournament. This tournament's wide open. I'm right back where I was last year this time. Last year I had the Murray twins leading Iowa and Fran McCafferty's team. I like Iowa, who's playing some really good basketball right now, not ranked. They're probably in the tournament. But I like them, baby, to go through an upset here. If you want a team that could steal a bid here, maybe Wisconsin, maybe Penn State, unlikely. Rutgers could be a bid stealer here if they were to get hot. They were playing really good basketball until a few weeks ago. The Big West, it's going to be a one bid league no matter how you look at it. UC Santa Barbara is the big, and UC Irvine should be the favorites, but UC Riverside is right there as well. A lot of Cal schools in this league, almost all Cal schools in this league. That's interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 University of California teams in this conference. I hadn't realized that all year looking at this. The only non-California state of California school district, state of California schools. That's still wrong. You know what I mean. UC schools, Hawaii, non-UC schools, Hawaii, Long Beach State. Everybody else is a Cal State school. Interesting. The Colonial Athletic, we've already talked about. Charleston has won that. Still has not beaten a team in the top 100. They do get a bid to the NCAA, though. Conference USA, this is a place you might see a bid stealer. Watch out for UAB. Good basketball school. This is Florida Atlantic should get a bid, even if they lose the conference tournament. They don't want to go out early. But if UAB or North Texas were to be upset-minded in this tournament, they could steal a bid again from one of these lower-tiered major conference schools. No independents are getting in. The Horizon League, one bid league, not a big deal. Youngstown, Milwaukee, maybe Cleveland State, all fairly bunched together here. We'll see how that goes. Excuse me. The Ivy, of course, a one bid league. This should come down to Yale and Princeton. Cornell, who's been very good over the last decade or so, not much of a year this year. They should not be factors. And Tommy Amaker's Harvard team is really faded this year. The Metro Atlantic, which will be very interesting, played in Atlantic City. Iona ended up winning this league by 4, kind of run away with it at the end as Ryder and Quinnipiac and Siena all kind of faded. Quinnipiac kind of made a run, but Siena faded badly at the end. This is going to be a one bid league. So Iona does not want to falter. They've won 11 in a row. And on top of that, a lot of talk about Rick Pitino potentially looking for his next major gig. So we'll see how that goes. Iona getting to the tournament and making some noise, which they almost did. They almost knocked off Alabama in the tournament 2 years ago. They could do some damage if they were to get there. The Mid-American Conference. Sorry. Another one bid league. No chance of a bid being stolen here. The favorites, Toledo, Kent State, Akron. I'll take Kent State in this tournament, actually. Middle Eastern Athletic. Again, a one bid league. You're looking at probably Howard or North Carolina Central. I like Howard here. Missouri Valley. This is a league that we talked about a little bit ago. There's some really good teams here. Bradley, 25-9, 16-4 in the league in first place. Drake, 27-7 overall, 15-5 in the league. Southern Illinois, 23-10, 14-6. Belmont, 14-6 in the conference. Indiana State, Larry Bird University. Haven't heard much of Indiana State since 1979. 13-7 in the conference, 22-12 overall. This is a league, it's probably one bid league. But if it's me, and I get a Drake and Bradley final, to me, the loser ought to get a bid. Especially if it's Bradley, who had a really good regular season, 16-4 in a conference. Give him a bid. Don't give it to these mid-tier, lower tier, not even mid-tier, but lower tier major conference teams. Like, again, sorry to beat up on you, Oklahoma State and West Virginia. We did do a bracket last year. There weren't a lot of us in it, but I'll put a bracket together next week, or Sunday night or whatever, Rick. So we'll do that. I'll post it to my page and the TGI Sports Talk page. I'll even post it to the Let's Talk Sports people if Dan Harris is okay with that. Sorry, I lose my breath here now and again. So we did do a bracket, and we will do one again this year. We'll have some fun with that. Anyway, I like Drake to win this conference tournament. So I would reward Bradley, assuming they make it to the final. But this is a great example of a conference with a really strong regular season winner. If they were to go out in a tournament, I'd give them a bid. Get me going. Mountain West. I've talked about the Mountain West a lot this year. I think they get 3 bids, maybe even 4. We'll see what Lenardi's got today. His brackets are changing rapidly. We'll get into bracketology right after we go through these conference tournaments. This thing's going to be wide open. Could somebody steal a bid? New Mexico, 8 and 10. Richard Pitino's had a really good year, had a really good start to the year. They finished poorly. They could get hot and make a run. San Jose State could make a run. Maybe even Nevada might be stealing a bid, because if they were to get 4, it would be San Diego State, Utah State, Boise State, and Nevada. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, San Diego State's in. I think Boise State's in. And I think Utah State might be in. So we'll see what Lenardi says in a second. But if you could have a bid stealer here if somebody like San Jose State were to get hot. Northeast Conference, we already talked about Fairleigh Dickinson is in. Ohio Valley. This is going to be a 1-bid league, not a big deal. Morehead State would be the comprehensive favorite here to win this tournament. The Pac-12, UCLA's probably got a number 1 bid locked up, I would say. Number 1 seed. Arizona still fighting to get in a 2 line. Is there that much difference between a 1 and a 2 line? In my mind, not really. Especially now when the 15 and 16s are better than they've been in the past in a lot of cases. We'll see what happens there. USC is a team that could, right now, they're projected to have 2 teams, maybe USC in, but Oregon, with Dana Altman, really good coach. If you want to see a bid stealer here, Oregon would be a team to watch out for. Arizona State could be on the bubble. We'll see what Lenardi's got them. I got them out right now, but they could also make an upstate. Even Washington State possibly could make a run here. Doubtful. Patriot League, 1-bid league. Colgate has dominated this conference the entire season, 17 and 1. I would think they'll get in. Also, another example of a regular season champion, a very dominant regular season champion. If they get a fluky loss here, should they be rewarded with an NCAA bid and not take the 8th place team in the Big Ten? Southwestern Conference. We know Alabama. We're going to get into who's in. Vanderbilt is a team that could still be on the bubble. Auburn's probably on the bubble. Probably nobody going to get hot here and steal a bid, I don't think. If it was to be somebody, it could be Florida, maybe Auburn. But I don't see that happen. I think the winner is probably going to be either listen, Missouri's playing really good basketball right now. Kentucky's playing good basketball, A&M and Alabama. They all got a shot to win this tournament. I do not think Tennessee's got any shot, even though I talked them up a month ago as Rick Barnes' best team. Now they're falling apart. What do we got here? You just like the play-in game? I'm not sure what you mean. You're talking about the first 4, Carlos? Is that what you're talking about? Sorry, excuse my nose blowing. Is that what you're talking about as the first 4, Carlos? They want to get 68 teams in. They get an extra night of basketball, 2 nights of basketball, in fact, in Dayton, where they would like to play these games. So or you miss a quarter of the games looking for the games, you got to get online and you got to get onto the NCAA.com app is what I want to say it is. I stream it all from there, man. You can follow every game. You can watch every game. I don't go scrolling through the TV looking for it anymore. I put it right on the laptop and slingshot it to the TV, and that's where I put my games on from. And you watch every game that's going on. You see all the scores. It's a great app or great site. It's free. I think as long as you have a TV package with somebody, you can use it. There's NIT opportunities for a ton of these teams, though. Who cares, right? Well, thank you for the LOL at the end. Because, yeah, the NIT is going to get a lot of teams. But is it fair for somebody like a Drake or a Bradley or, somebody like that who's had a great regular season, can't get in that large bid because we want to take the 10th place team from the Big Ten? Nobody cares about the NIT anymore anyway. The first four. Well, actually, I kind of like it because it makes a couple of these teams where they get slid in. They get it slid in, I think, at 12 seeds. So you're going to get 4 teams, at large teams, and we'll look at Lenardi's in a second. When I tell you the last 4 in, that's the 4 that will play, and then you'll have the last 4 seeds. The 16 seeds all play in this as well. And then all the potential 12s play each other as well. The Southern Conference is going to be one. Is this one over? No, it's not. This is going to be a 1-bid league. Furman, Sanford, both 15-4. UNC Greensboro, 14-4. Greensboro's had some tournament history. I said Wolford as well. But it's probably going to be one of those top 3 teams. The Southland Conference, 1 bid. Texas A&M, Northwestern State. By the way, Northwestern State, I turned this on. Kenny pointed us out into the chat today. They got a kid I did not know about who has one arm. Let me see if I can find this quick. I want to give you his name. It's a tremendous story. His name is Hansel Emmanuel, playing for Northwestern State. He hasn't played a lot. He's only a freshman. But he has played. He has scored. He's hit a 3-pointer this year. I'm not sure how much he played today, but he's an interesting case. And maybe they make the NCAA tournament, and you'll see something very interesting. Should they make it and play? They're going to play 1 game. Let's face it. In the Southwestern Athletic Conference, again a 1-bid league. Alcorn State, Grambling. The favorites there, Jackson State with a chance maybe for an upset. The Summit League already wrapped up by Oral Roberts. Nobody will get a second bid there. The Sun Belt, 1 bid. No chance for bid stealing here, but should be a good tournament between Southern Miss, Louisiana, Marshall, James Madison. All of these teams should have a chance at this championship. Oh, we're fading a little bit. West Coast Conference, I said, is over. Gonzaga, who I've tried to bury all year. Great job. They're 9th in the country now. They're 14-2 in the league, 28-5. And they whacked St. Mary's very good the other night. So St. Mary's will get the second bid here and unlikely to get a third bid out of this conference. Western Athletic Conference, lastly, 1 bid. Utah Valley, maybe Sam Houston, maybe even Southern Utah. So that's kind of look at the conference tournaments, what's been played and where the champions are, what we're looking at this week. There'll be some Cinderellas. There'll be some dark horses, some of the mid-majors where we think they should get a second bid, like the Missouri Valley Conference, as I mentioned, or a third bid or 4th bid, like the Mountain West, for instance. Let's take a look right now at Lenardi's bracketology, and then we'll look at some of the other stuff going on around college basketball, college football, anything you guys want to bring up your topics, bring them to the table, and we'll chat about them. Right now, the number 1 overall seed, Kansas, my bad. On the bubble, last 4 byes. So these teams don't have to play in the play-in games that Carlos hates so much. Boise State, North Carolina State, Pittsburgh, and Penn State. This is Joe Lunardi. Last 4 in. These teams would play in the first 4. Mississippi State, Utah State, Rutgers, a little surprisingly, and Nevada that I mentioned. First 4 out. Boy, that means he's got West Virginia. Oh, my God. So he's got West Virginia easily in the field right now. With what I say the record was? Killing me, Joe. Not just Joe, but everybody's bracketology is basically the same or close to the same. I know they've lost a bunch of close games, but my God, win some. God, I hate this. West Virginia, 7-11, 18-13. I don't care about their net. I don't care about their power ranking. I don't care about their strength of schedule. You didn't win games. My God, it's just frustrating. Do I need a new banner? I already did that, huh? Let's just talk some bracketology. Where'd I leave off? Lunardi. Cow. Oh, that's rude. Anyway, first 4 out. Oklahoma State. Good. Thank you, Joe. Wisconsin. Arizona State. North Carolina. First 4 out. That could mean North Carolina doesn't need 3 wins, Rick. They might only need a couple. But I think if I'm North Carolina and Hubie Davis, I want to win. I got to get to that conference final to have a chance. Next 4 out, Michigan. Charleston's got to be in. They won their tournament, so I'm not sure why he's got them out. Clemson. Do I have that wrong? Did Charleston not win their tournament? College of Charleston won. That must have been just today. That's probably why it was that way. Yeah, the championship was last night. I thought these were updated every day, Joe. Anyway, he's got Charleston out, but they're in. Clemson out, Oregon out. Now, again, a team like Michigan playing really good basketball could steal a bit if they were to win the Big Ten championship, and that league could be wide open. As good as Purdue played early in the year, they've struggled lately. I told you I like Iowa from the outside, and they're safely in the field, I would say. Clemson's another team, and the ACC could potentially steal a bid by winning. And they probably ought to be in over West Virginia and Oklahoma State anyway. I don't know what he's looking at sometimes. Let's see who he's got number 1 seeds if they've changed. Kansas, Alabama, Houston, and UCLA now has moved on to the 1 line for Lunardi. Let's see who he's got here in Albany. Shall we, Rick? You want to go to a game, Rick? Friday, Sunday, next week? Go to Friday. We can go to all 4 games. Albany, Iowa State against Oral Roberts. Interesting game, 5-12 matchup. UConn still showing up as a 4 seed in Albany on Lunardi's bracket against Iona. Interesting matchup there. On the other side of that bracket, San Diego State and Pittsburgh, Gonzaga and Furman. Interesting. That'll change. Maybe none of those teams get here. Who knows? What do you got here, Rick? Gonzaga has the art of it. They do. Timmy reminds of the old Dave Collins, all the hustle and grit. You know, you're right. He's not the most athletic guy in the world. And one of the reasons I didn't like them this year, and a lot of people were down on them, is it didn't have the athletic cards that they've had the last, decade almost. At least the last 5 years, they've really been good. Made a couple of finals. But Timmy is a gritty team, and this is a team, they don't go down without a fight. And Mark Few, again, we talk about great coaches. We don't talk enough about Mark Few, who seems happy at Gonzaga. And by the way, their move to the Big 12 doesn't seem as a sure thing anymore. But Mark Few's done a great job. You're talking about national coaches of the year. Mark Few ought to come into the conversation with what he's done here. Well, we'll see. Probably can't get tickets for one session. You probably got to buy them for all four, Rick. But I don't know exactly. I know in the past that's how they've sold them, but we'll see. Let's get into let's see what the Sunday brings, and if UConn is actually in Albany, you and I'll talk. I've sat there. The last time they had the regional, the first two rounds in Albany was quite a few years ago. They played the second round, the third and fourth rounds they played here, which is not quite as fun. There's only 4 teams. But that first day, you're there from noon till midnight. 4 games, great basketball. It was a lot of fun. And it's probably, I'm going to say 30 years since they had this first and second round here. What else has he got here as far as bubble watch stuff? Right now, they wouldn't even let me in the frickin' building, Rick. Jesus, good grief. Okay, is this Lenardi? Just more from Lenardi. I don't know who this is from. No, this is Joe Gasway. What are they saying here? ACC, nothing surprising there. They do call North Carolina State with work to do. North Carolina with a lot of work to do. Clemson with a lot of work to do. Big 12, no surprises there. Iowa State, who was kind of shaky the last couple of weeks, I think that they've solidified their bid the last week or so. They won the last couple of games, a couple of really good wins. And obviously Kansas, Texas, Baylor, Kansas State, TCU, no real arguments there. Should be in. West Virginia, how? To be as solid as a lot of people have them at 18-13 heading into the tournament, their best win is an 89-81 win over Kansas State at home. That's their best win. Now, I know the Nets had them ranked really high, like in the 20s all year. Their strength of schedule is really good. But again, strength of schedule is a great measurement, as long as you win some of them. But they weren't winning them. Bob Huggins is a really good coach, but I just don't think they deserve a bid. And I don't think Oklahoma State does either. The Big East, Marquette, Xavier, UConn, Creighton, Providence are all in. Providence would be the closest to the bubble, but I think they're in. You could get this is a league where, listen, a Seton Hall or somebody could make some noise in the tournament. Even Villanova's been playing better basketball recently. Good surprise. Big Ten, Purdue, Indiana, Maryland. Maryland's haven't helped their chances near the end of the season. Northwestern, Michigan State, Iowa, Illinois. Illinois is another team to watch out for in the Big East or the Big Ten. Teams with some work to do. How many teams is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Rutgers. I think Rutgers is in with at least a win in the Big Ten tournament. We give them 8 teams. Wisconsin needs to make a couple. They need to make a run. Penn State needs to make a run. Michigan needs to make a run, probably to the finals, in my mind, to get in. Pac-12, Arizona and UCLA. USC should be in. They're calling them with some work to do, but I think they should be in. Just don't get beat in the first round. You should be okay. Arizona State, a couple of wins, a win or two, should get them in. This team's played pretty well. Oregon, I think, needs to probably get to the conference final, maybe even win to get in. But again, Dana Altman's a really good coach, a really good tournament coach, and he could help this team slide in there. The SEC, Locks, Alabama, Tennessee. Boy, nobody's playing worse. Nobody's on a worse momentum ride than Tennessee right now. Kentucky, Texas A&M playing really good basketball. Arkansas, I thought they were making a comeback till they got blown out by Tennessee last weekend. Missouri also most likely a lock. Auburn should be in, and the work-to-do teams, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, those two teams would probably be stealing a bid if they were to get in. The American, we know Houston's in. Houston's a number one lock. Should be in Memphis. I think Memphis is locked in. The game they played against Houston at home last weekend showed the mettle that they have. Penny Hardaway's done a really good job. Penny Hardaway's become a much better basketball coach. He's not just he's not a figurehead there. He's not a guy there to bring in big names. He's learned how to coach. And probably nobody else is going to get in from there. So if you get an upset from a Tulane, a Cincinnati, one of those teams, Temple, gets on a roll and wins this tournament, they would steal a bid. And they might push Memphis out, though. Mountain West, you got San Diego State is a lock. I think Boise State's a lock. They've got them with work to do. Nevada probably has a little bit of work to do. Utah State. Both these teams, they win a couple of games in a tournament, they should be in. There's a very good chance of the Mountain West getting 4 bids. This is a good conference. Other locks from other conferences, obviously Gonzaga's already in. St. Mary's is a lock. Some should-be-ins. Florida Atlantic should be in, as I said earlier, regardless of their tournament outcome. North Texas. We talked about teams from Conference USA. UAB and North Texas, live underdogs to beat Florida Atlantic in this tournament. And if they were, I think both of them would be stealing bids from somebody. So we'll see how that goes. Other news around college. Let's see what's going on score-wise, by the way. Let's see what scores we got right now going on today. Howard today at the end of, holy Christ. Excuse my French. Oh, sorry. I thought that was a different score than I thought. I thought it was halftime. 91-55, Howard over South Carolina State. Western Kentucky, 49-47 over UTEP. Ohio State rolling over Wisconsin. This should put a nail in Wisconsin's coffin right here. They're out. Ole Miss, and some news from Ole Miss, by the way. Ole Miss, rumor has it that Chris Beard, formerly of Texas, fired earlier this year after being arrested and on assault charges, domestic abuse charges, and the charges were dropped later on as his girlfriend or fiance, whatever she is, recanted her story. Listen, where there's smoke, there's fire. Whether she recanted or not, she was messed up somehow. And Chris Bird does not look all that good in this story. And I'm a little surprised. I'm not surprised he's getting another chance. I'm a little surprised he's getting it this early and with the power conference team this quickly. But it looks like it's going to happen. Ole Miss is beating South Carolina, by the way, in the second half, early in the second half, 37-31. Iona's beating, at halftime, is beating Mount St. Mary's 33-28. Texas Tech losing to West Virginia. I wish they'd lose. West Virginia, get out, 43-35. North Carolina, we said they need to win at least 2, probably 3 games. They're leading Boston College 43-29 at the half. Wyoming and New Mexico. New Mexico, as I called, maybe a live dog in that Mountain West to maybe be an upset potential for the tournament championship. They're leading 29-25. Colgate, who I'd mentioned, has had a great year in the Patriot League, leading 26-15, middle of the second half over Lafayette. Duquesne losing to LaSalle early, 18-17, and some finals. Howard I already did that one. Davidson beat St. Bonaventure 65-54. We talked about Syracuse loses to Wake Forest. As we said earlier, Jim Boeheim's 47-year head coaching career, 60-year affiliation with Syracuse since he was a player, comes to an end in another down season, missing the NCAA tournament for the third time in 4 years. This team could go to the NIT. As far as I know, this team would be coached by their new head coach, Anthony, or what's his name? Jeepers Creepers. Adrian Autry, if that were to be the case. Fresno State loses to Colorado State in the Mountain West, 67-65. George Mason over Richmond, 62-57 in the Colonial. I'm sorry, the Atlantic 10. They used to play in the Colonial. Pittsburgh, 89-81, I think we talked about earlier, over Georgia Tech. Grambling, 87-72 over Bethune-Cookman. Colorado, a bit of an upset, I guess, beats Washington, 74-68. St. John's, in a very dominating performance, beats Butler, as they should, 76-63. It would take a superhuman effort for St. John's to win this tournament, but stranger things have happened, and they might need to win this tournament to save their coach's, Mike Williams' job. Air Force loses to UNLV, 78-70. Again, in the Mountain West, Texas A&M Corpus Christi beats Northwestern State, 75-71. St. Joe's rolls over George Washington, 87-76. Washington State over California, 69-52. And DePaul, I just had mentioned this. I think this game might have just gone final, or I missed it. DePaul with a big upset over Seton Hall, who've been playing really good basketball in Shasheen Holloway's first season there as the head coach. Seton Hall falls to DePaul, and now there's NCAA hopes are dashed. So that's the games that are going on right now. A little bit of news from around college basketball. It looks like UCLA's Jalen Clark, one of their best players, out for the rest of the season with an Achilles injury. He got hurt in Saturday's season finale against Arizona, victory, but he did lose the game, and it is a massive blow to UCLA's national championships hopes, as he's one of the best defenders in the country. This would be a bad choice for, or not choice, but outcome for UCLA. Alabama's Brandon Miller calls the situation really heartbreaking. You think so, Brandon? You know, he declined to. I'm surprised they put him out there in front of the press. And I'm still surprised that, you know, they haven't done something about this. And Alabama, as I mentioned, they're going to be a 1 or 2 seed in this tournament. And they're also probably going to be public enemy number 1 in this tournament because of the way they've handled this entire situation. And Miller is going to be, scrutinized greatly. He's played very well since this whole incident went down, and he was named as the person who brought the gun to the scene, not because he knew what was going to happen, not been charged with anything. But, you know, Coach Nate Oates hasn't handled this whole situation very well. Neither has the entire Alabama program, in my mind. We mentioned Chris Beard is now emerged as the top candidate at Ole Miss. Once all charges were dropped, apparently they went right after them. Athletes are going to sue the Ivy League over its no scholarship policy. I'm not really sure how that can happen. I mean, you know, how do you force a conference to offer scholarships if it's their decision not to offer them? I don't know how that can be. I just don't know how that can possibly be even a consideration. But, you know, in today's world, what do I know? Gonzaga, we talked about, they added another WCC title. Drew Timme sets scoring record at Gonzaga. They continue their domination with their fourth consecutive tournament championship and 10th in 11 years. St. Mary's being the only exception in 2019. Timmy scored 18 points to become Gonzaga's all-time leading scorer. And there have been some pretty good players that have come through there through the years, if you remember. So congratulations to him. Today, I think this is from today. No, this is from last night. Northern Kentucky edges Cleveland State. They won the Horizon. I don't think that was on our update earlier. They did seal an NCAA berth there. We talked about Jim Boeheim. What other news we have here? Jim Boeheim's greatest moments. I guess we'll talk about that some other time. What else? Ole Miss, Texas Tech named Corey Williams. Yeah, this is an interesting situation as well. Mark Adams was suspended at Texas Tech this week after making some, just using some, I don't know, just, again, it wasn't a very smart move for Mark Adams to say the things that he said last week. Inappropriate, unacceptable, and racially insensitive comments he made to players last week. And Corey Williams, as I said, has been named the interim coach for Mark Adams. Mark Adams was a great story last year. He took over for Chris Beard. He's a lifer. Had come to coach at Texas Tech under Chris Beard. He waited a long time to get his shot, and they had a really good year last year. Struggled this year, stayed on the peripherals of a bid, but Coach Mark Adams probably is done coaching major college basketball after these unfortunate remarks. In fact, what he said, let's just see. Let's see how bad it was. Here's what Mark Adams had to say. He was encouraging the student athletes to be more receptive to coaching and referenced Bible verses about workers, teachers, parents, and slaves serving their masters, as, to make a point about, being more receptive to coaching. And, you probably could have got away with this. I don't know. Probably, certainly not in the climate that we live in today. I'm not defending his remarks. But again, please, we can't be, I know the remarks are racially insensitive, but please don't be labeling Mark Adams as a racist because of these comments. I understand the point he was trying to make. And believe me, many, many, many kids are uncoachable today and not receptive to coaching. Not just in sports, by the way, but in the real world. But, this is not the time in history to be making those type of comments. You're never, ever going to get away with that. And Mark Adams, I'm sure, and he immediately regretted it. So, anyway. Stu Jackson, former head coach of the Knicks, is going to be the new the West Coast Conference commissioner starting on April 24th. Jackson has done a lot of things in his career. As I said, he was the executive vice president of the NBA from 2000 to 2013, president and general manager of the Vancouver Grizzlies for 6 years in the 90s to 2000. He was a coach of the Knicks for a bit in the 90s. He's done a lot of things in basketball, and now he'll take over as the commissioner of the West Coast Conference. Congratulations to Stu Jackson. And I guess that's about it. I want to talk about as far as college basketball goes. Anything college football we want to talk about? Do you guys have any news? I mean, Steve Scarsazian says that Cam Ewers Arch Manning, I couldn't remember his first name. Arch Manning will compete for the quarterback job at Texas this year. It's not being handled to either the sophomore Ewers or the incoming true freshman Manning. We'll see what happens there. There was a $4 million settlement approved in Iowa on a football discrimination case against alleged racial discrimination in Coach Kurt Friends' program. And we're a very litigious society today. Brian Kelly on the new 9-game SEC slate. He wants to play the best people. Well, the way this is going to not be now with 9 games in the conference, you're not gonna be able to play cupcakes the way some of these teams have in the past. And it's going to be very interesting to see who these conferences choose as the rival games. So they'll play these teams. I think there's 3 teams each of them will play every year, and the rest will rotate. But you got a lot of great traditional rivalries there to try to facilitate. The rest is kind of draft news that I don't really feel like getting into right now. What else can we talk about? Kirby Smart defends Georgia's culture after the fatal crash and arrests and other things that have gone on at Georgia. I don't think this is a lack of institutional control or that type of thing. I think these are just players making bad decisions. The coaches can't, again, Nate Oates, I don't think, is responsible for these kids who go out and commit murder. I mean, parents and other factors in their lives have to step up and be responsible as well as the people themselves. And I don't think that Kirby Smart is necessarily responsible for the things that have happened outside of the program at Georgia. It's tough for these coaches today, man. You can't be all things to all people. You can't be all knowing and all seeing. I know they've got eyes everywhere, but, my eyes are starting to cloud up here. I don't know why. What else we got going on here? Let's take a look at the mailbag a little bit. If you guys have some topics you want to address, feel free to bring them up, and we'll talk about them as we finish out the show. Florida State's, what do we got here? I don't care that much about that. I just don't care much about any of this. What's going on in college baseball? I promise CA is not with me tonight, but I promise some college baseball news. There he is. He's in late, but CA's here. It's funny, I was just thinking of you, buddy. Good to have you with us. Sorry, I have not been on since this time last week, and hopefully I will be this weekend with all our shows. It's been a tough go for Keith trying to stay healthy. College baseball, one of the key game last week was probably Florida winning 14-4 over Miami. After letting Miami run up the score in the previous game, Florida returned the favor with Wyatt Langford leading the way at a 2-run home run in the bottom of the 8th to wrap up a spectacular week of play that earned him SEC Player of the Week honors. He had 5 home runs over 5 starts. Key game coming up to take a look at this week on Friday, North Carolina State at Miami. That's 7 p.m. You can watch it on the ACC network. North Carolina State's got a perfect 12-0 season to start this 12-0 record to start the season, and Miami might be one of their first real tests to see if this 12-0 league record is for real, and they're starting league play as well with this game against Miami. And the player to watch this week, Cannon Peebles from North Carolina State, as we just mentioned. See if he can follow up his 6-hit, 10 RBI performance over the weekend, last weekend. He had a bit of a slower start this season, but he seems to have found his groove, as last weekend would show. The top 25, LSU still at number 1. This is the ESPN's rankings, by the way. LSU at 10-1, Stanford 9-2, Tennessee 11-2, Ole Miss 10-2. We got Wake 13-0. Congratulations to their big start. And maybe we'll get once we get through the NCAA tournament, basketball tournament. We'll get Larry Sorensen on to talk a little about ACC college baseball and Wake Forest's efforts as we get closer and closer to their College World Series time as well. Florida, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Louisville, TCU round out the top 10. Virginia Tech, East Carolina, Oklahoma State, North Carolina, and Texas A&M are the next 5 teams. UCLA, Virginia, Alabama, North Carolina State, and South Carolina round out the top 20. And the last 5 teams in the top 25, South Carolina, Florida State, Southern Miss, Iowa, 9-1, Campbell, not a name you all we normally see in the top 25, 8-2, and Oregon State. That's 3 teams at the bottom of this top 25 that I don't often see getting a lot of play in college baseball. See if there's anything else you want to chat about in college baseball. I'll be glad to do that. We talked last week. I don't know if you were here. But we talked about the player, and I can't remember where he's from, who had 2 Grand Slam home runs in an inning last week, and also a kid going to one of the SEC schools, I think, who is throwing ambidextrously. I don't know if that's a word, but he is ambidextrous, throws with both hands, and gets into the mid to high 90s, right and left-handed. So some interesting stuff in college baseball. What else we got? Anything else you guys want to chat about today? As we hit 8:21, I may wrap up a few minutes early, if not, because Keith is starting to drag a little bit. Anyway, I let off the show with this, and I guess I'll end it with this unless somebody else brings another topic to the table. Today marked the end of Jim Boeheim's 47-year run as the head coach of Syracuse basketball. They lost to Wake Forest in the first round of the ACC tournament. Rumors have been swirling for weeks about Boeheim, who's 78 years old, either moving on, and it's still a little unclear to me whether he was pushed out or left of his own caliber, or his own volition, because he had some funny things to say after the game today when he was being asked about whether he was retiring. He said, "That's up to the school." Race to the 8, college baseball is the most entertaining. I agree. Watch the, I think I talked about this with you before, didn't I? CA, Augie, what's his name? Bear with me. The former coach of Cal State Fullerton and Texas, Augie Garado. If you remember, one of the great names in college baseball, one of the great coaches in college baseball history, won national championships at Cal State Fullerton, where that thing wasn't being done right and left, and at Texas, where he took over a very proud program. He's since passed away, but there's a great documentary. I know you can catch it on YouTube, CA. If you haven't caught it, check it out. I'll see if I can find the name of it. If I can find this, I want to give you the name of this documentary because it is really, really good. It was done. It's probably a few years old now. I want to see if I can find it for you. They don't know what I taught them yet. That's not it. Inning by Inning, I think that's it. A Portrait of a Coach. It's a 3-hour documentary, if this is the one I'm thinking of. It's really, really well done and a lot of fun to watch. A lot of inside stuff. You see some classic locker room blow-ups by Augie, mentoring by Augie, the way he would, rip guys down so he could build them back up. Great coach. And I think it's just a great documentary. And if you like college baseball, if you like sports at all, and you like watching stories of leaders of young men, Augie Grotto is one of these guys, and you need to watch this documentary. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, CA, please check it out. And listen, kudos to Jim Boeheim on a great remarkable career. We are not going to see a head coach in college basketball, major college basketball, coach 47 years total, much less 47 years at one school. 60-year association. He started as a point guard playing with Dave Bing, former NBA great, with the Detroit Pistons in 1963, became an assistant coach, and finally head coach in 1976. And he's the second winningest coach in college basketball history, would be number one without 108 vacated wins from some issues that happened early. Yeah, Gustafson is who he replaced. I was trying to come up with that. Thank you. A legendary college baseball coach of his own at Texas, right? So you know of our Augie Garrido, and what a great coach and a great leader of men, molder of men, and you see that in this documentary. So thanks for joining me tonight, guys. Rick and Carlos, CA, anybody else who joined us today. We're heading into some of the best times of the year, and hopefully we'll be back Friday with our Are You Serious show with the Mad New Yorker. Sunday Stream of Consciousness on Sunday. We'll do some of the other stuff as well. Let's talk New York sports. The Major League Baseball update. I'll do as much as I can. Still trying to recover from this upper respiratory thing that's had me for about 2 weeks now. We'll try not to split the weekend away like we did last weekend. And if possible, we'll do a NCAA selection show Sunday night possibly. I did one last year. Maybe we'll do another one. And also, I'll be on with Tanner D tomorrow night on Let's Talk Sports as well, and a little bit of a college basketball roundtable. So we'll see you then. Before I go, I don't want to cut you off. Yeah, it's been a rough go, man. It's been of my life. We're struggling through it. Thank you, buddy. You guys have a great weekend. Great rest of the weekend today. Enjoy the college basketball. Enjoy the college basketball. Good to see you. Thank you guys. Good talk. Have a great day.